Hi everyone. So we're continuing our learning of the Mishnah of Shabbat, and we're beginning chapter 9. And something interesting is happening here in chapter 9, and it's important to, I think, make a point about how the Mishnah kind of organizes itself. At times, it's similar language. It's not necessarily the topic that it's organized but kind of the structure of the language, some kind of common phrase or common way of grouping, identifying something. So in this case, it looks like a lot of the mishnayot in this chapter kind of have the structure of asking the question minayin, from where do we learn this, and then using a verse, and a verse that is a strong support of something, but not necessarily concrete proof. And it has that structure, or possibly it's connected to the last chapter because the first Mishnah here uses a proof or a support from Isaiah, and so did the last one. So there's something there, but not necessarily about Shabbat. So it's grouped in kind of a funny way that maybe we wouldn't be familiar with for other things, but that's how the Mishnah works in places, that sometimes it's not on the exact topic that you're in that Masechet, but based on some kind of other grouping. So we're going to be learning about a whole diversity of things in chapter 9 here. Okay, the first one. Aleph. Amar Rabbi Akiva, minayin la'avodah zara shematam'a v'masa kinida. So said Rabbi Akiva, from where do we learn that an object of idolatry, something from avodah zara, something that was used for idol worship, transmits tuma, so impurity, by carrying, like a woman who is a nida. So this idea being that you don't necessarily, these kind of biblical ideas of purity and impurity, and there's a type of transmitting of impurity that can happen not even by touching something, but by carrying it. So carrying it in a box or a basket or something, that there's impurity that can be imparted through that. This is ritual impurity according to the biblical text. So from where do we learn that? Shne'emar tizreim kemo dava tse tomarlo. Cast them away like the nida. Go out, shall you say to it. So it's using this verse in describing idol worship, juxtaposing these two things as a proof for saying they both can contract or impart tuma in the same way, through carrying, not even through contact. Ma nida mitam'a v'masa, af avodah zara mitam'a v'masa. And that's what just reiterating what I said. So that's where the Mishnah says that just as the nida transmits impurity by carrying, so too does avodah zara, idolatry, transmit by carrying. So it's interesting to say that also the Gemara is not necessarily going to rule this way. It seems like the Gemara is going to go in the way of not comparing avodah zara nida, but rather comparing avodah zara with sherets, with like a creepy crawly thing, little different animals that impart impurity. That's going to be the parallel, and not the one that we're seeing here in the Mishnah when it comes to the halacha. So we'll see about that. Okay. Bet. Minayin l'sfina shehi teora. So from where do we learn that a ship is not susceptible to, that a ship is pure, it's not going to be susceptible to tumah contamination? Shene'emar, because it says in Proverbs, we have this verse, derech oniyah v'levyam, the way of a ship in the midst of the sea. So just like the rabbis are saying that just as the sea does not contract tuma, does not become ritually impure, it's kind of like itself. It is itself a big mikvah. So how could it become impure? Therefore, the boat also does not. The boat that is in the midst of the sea does not contract tuma. Minayin la'aruga shehi shishat tfachim shezorin b'tocha chamisha zeronin arba'a be'arba'a ruchot aruga ve'echad be'emsa. So from where do we learn? Now we're talking about something different. From where do we learn that a garden bed that is 6 by 6 tefachim, hand breadths, may be sown with 5 types of seeds, 4 on the 4 sides, so you have like a square, and on each side, 4 different species, 4 different seeds, and 1 in the center. So what is this talking about? We're dealing with kilei zra'im. So the idea of the biblical prohibition of mingling of certain seeds, which we should say practically there would be differences in how strict what one can or cannot do based on being in the land of Israel or being outside the land of Israel. So the majority of the laws on this topic have to do with in the land of Israel. But nonetheless, let's just talk about the topic in and of itself. So what is it saying here? It's saying that in order to have these seeds not mingle, you have to have them at a certain distance in a certain way so that the roots won't intermingle. And the measurements given here are that if they're 6 handbreadths, all separated, so everything is at least 3 apart from each other, then it's fine. Okay? So where are we getting that from? So each of these mishnayot then brings a verse that's evidence of something, not necessarily proof, but evidence. Shne'emar ki cha'aretz totzi simcha uchgana zroeha tatzmiach zar'a lo nemar ela zroeha. For it is stated, for like the earth, it will give forth its plant, and like a garden, it will cause its seeds to grow. Also a verse from Isaiah. Its seed is not stated, but its seeds, so plural. So with the Gemara later on will explain the way the rabbis understand that this verse is a proof is because there's 4 words here that refer to planting and agriculture that have to do with things growing, having to do with things growing. So there's 4 words. One of them is plural. Zroeha is plural, so that equals 5. So that one represents 2. And therefore, these 5 species can be in this garden bed, so long as the measurements aren't given in the Mishnah. So that's the rabbi's understanding of what is the appropriate distance that would make sure that the roots won't intermingle. And that's where this is coming from. So we're really talking about different things. We're not necessarily on the topic of Shabbos, or not at all on the topic of Shabbos anymore, but really something interesting is happening in this chapter that happens in other places in the Mishnah that were organized based on a theme, based on a structure. So here it seems like they all have this menayin, from where do we learn it, structure, and then ending with a verse that's evidence but not necessarily a concrete proof. And we'll keep learning with that, so we'll see a bunch of different interesting topics kind of diverging here a little bit from just the strict learning of Shabbos, but we're still in the Mishnah of Shabbos. Okay, thanks for joining, and see you all next week.